Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to episode 4 of The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder. So, I looked up something, and I wanted to know how many episodes this series, season, whatever you want to call it, is. Because I don't know if there's going to be another season or not. I don't know if it's been greenlit for another yet. But apparently it's 10 episodes. 10 episodes were ordered for this first season, and there will probably be more. It's been pretty well received. That being said, we're about halfway through, that means. And I have decided that we are going to take a halfway break. We're going to take a break halfway through just to avoid burnout. Because this series does deal with some notable real topics. And I feel like for me, at least, that can at least partially be very, not stressful, that's the wrong way to put it, but it takes a bit out of me. So I think a break halfway through the season, smart idea. Come back refreshed for the second half. So that being said, this is episode 4, so next week's will be the last episode for the time being, episode 5. Then we will take a little bit of a break, get to something else, and then come right back to it. That's the plan. So yeah. And I do want to say I'm very much enjoying this. So it's nothing about that. Again, it is just the fact that it does deal with some notable topics, and sometimes that can get the better of me, and it was kind of also the same reason why I decided to take that break after all on Doom Patrol. Though Doom Patrol is really heavy with it. Proud Family is not as bad as that, but still, just to be safe, to avoid burnout. I don't want to get sick of this series because I love it. So yeah, just wanted to bring that up right away, kind of get it out there. And just explain what was going to be going on with that. So, that all being said, though, last time we had basketball and everything, Space Jam references, all that fun stuff. Penny has a new boyfriend, Kareem. Yeah. Interesting stuff that will probably be carried over to other episodes. But the question is, where are we going to go now? Because with this series being pretty mostly episodic with some continuity stuff here and there, don't really know. Don't really have a excuse me, sorry about that. Don't really have a good inkling as to how it's going to go down. So we'll just have to see. But like I said, I'm very much enjoying this. So I'm excited to see where it goes. It's actually been, I think, a couple weeks since I last recorded the last episode, episode 3. Because we didn't have one last week because of the break. And then the one the week before, I recorded a week ahead of time, practically. So yeah, it's been a little bit since I actually watched any of this. But yeah, like I said, I'm excited to see where we go next, what we do next. I don't know why I'm yawning so much right now. I apologize. But either way, we're just going to get on with this, hope for the best, and see what this episode has in store. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, this was, like I said in the reaction, something I knew about. It was pretty big in the advertising and everything for this series. It was made a big deal of on social media. Zachary Quinto and Billy Porter's characters here. Yeah. Barry and Randall. We knew about them ahead of time, before the series even began. So, this didn't really come as a surprise if you paid any attention to all the setup for the series and all. But it's more about how the episode was handled. So the episode focuses on the reveal that Maya and KG's father is only one of their fathers, that they have two, and are the adopted children of two gay fathers. And basically the backlash and whatnot that they face for it, because of Deschanel. So there's quite a few things to talk about here. First off, I know some people have probably, when this episode first came out and everything, I know some people have probably said quite a bit on Deschanel. Because Deschanel is the one who basically outs the fact that Maya and KG have two fathers to the school and everything, and the public. And she kind of causes a lot of the homophobic discourse that Maya and KG have to deal with following that. And I know there's always been people, there's always been fans of even the original show that always found Deschanel annoying or meddlesome or just a problem, basically. And it's like, I get that. And honestly, I fully acknowledge and agree with that this was entirely her fault. I'm not as angry about it as with others, because I don't think Deschanel necessarily tries to actively be like bad or anything. Her intentions are not necessarily bad. She's a gossiper, and she has a hard time keeping her mouth shut about things. She's not good at not talking. But I genuinely don't believe she has actual bad intention. So I'm not as harsh on her as some people probably are. Excuse me. Ugh. But it is without question that she is at fault for just a lot of the public discourse that we see happen. Now, let's talk about probably the biggest elephant in the room here. Penny's friends and her father's reaction to finding out about Maya and KG having two dads. Because this is probably the biggest aspect of this episode for sure. A few of Penny's friends have this reaction that they have been told by their parents, or by their fathers specifically, I guess, that this is weird. That having two fathers, or, queer parents, I guess in general, is weird. And so they choose to stay out of things, Michael being the only exception. And Zoe even says that she's planning on running for student office, and as such feels she can't take a side, and that because of it, she wants to remain neutral. This is a very important topic to discuss. Let's discuss the Zoe part first because she has a specific other reason. Then we'll discuss the others. Zoe's reasoning is bullshit. It is complete and utter fucking bullshit. And she's actually the only character in this that I'm actually actively angry about with her reasoning. Because the entire idea that, oh, she's running for student office and has to remain neutral is a bullshit idea. The idea that anyone holding office in real life, even, whether a student office or, like actual, just general political office, the idea that they have to remain neutral is not only just incorrect, but harmful. Because it's basically saying that the lives and rights of queer people are less important than your own standing. That you see your own self-gratifying position as a bigger deal. And in some ways, it could be argued that it's even worse than just outright saying that you don't support them. Because it's more, how do I put this? It's more backhanded in a way. Like, if you're actively, like, forwardly saying that you don't support the queer community, it's like at least you're being open and honest about it. If you're trying to remain neutral, you're trying to be sly in everything about your lack of support. It's kind of gross, if I'm being honest. And so Zoe having this interpretation here, it's like she's actively choosing to side against them by, not siding with them. She's saying that her own possible position is more important to her than the lives and rights of Maya and KG's parents here, their fathers. And it's gross. Now here's why the other of Penny's friends, their reactions to this don't bother me. Because as they say, it's like their fathers kind of had told them that it's weird, or at least given them that impression that it's weird, and so they don't quite like it right off the bat because of that. This is a case of nurture, a case of kids being raised to believe something that they would not have necessarily come to that conclusion on their own. And the reason I don't see this as being as bad is because I was literally one of those kids. I was raised into believing that queer people were freaks, into thinking that they were morally wrong. And for a good portion of my life, most of my life, that's what I believed. It's because, again, it was how I was raised. And it wasn't my fault. I was taught that way. I was taught to believe that way. But it was also up to me to realize that and to change that, which they do. They do eventually side with Penny and Maya and KG and stand up for them in that regard. And they eventually just completely accept Barry and Randall. But yeah, I can't blame them when I was there. I luckily was able to, thanks to being called out by friends and whatnot, I was able to see how wrong I was. I was able to come to that understanding and better myself. Just like they were in this episode. Again, Zoe's the only one who I actually feel angry towards. Because she gave a specific reason that was more than just, this is what I was taught growing up. She specifically uses an excuse of her potential political position. And it's not just a flimsy excuse, it's an actually just really terrible, disgusting excuse that just makes you look worse. So that's why that got to me a lot more. And then there's Oscar. We never really get a feeling in this episode why Oscar is against it. He just seems against it just because he kind of is. And the thing is, that's kind of realistic in its own regard. There are people who don't really have a reason as to why they're homophobic and whatnot. Or transphobic or whatnot. The only thing you could say is it was how they were raised. Because they don't have a reason. They don't have any actual legitimate reasoning. There are some people who will use religion to try and justify it. There are some people who will use other things. Politics or whatnot. But then there's some people who don't have a reason. Or at least none that they can properly get across. They just disagree with it. And that's kind of where Oscar is in this episode. He doesn't give a reason. He doesn't have like this motivation for it. He's just against it. And the only thing he kind of says regarding it is he tells Penny, you'll understand when you're older. And it's like, that doesn't actually explain anything. So he's just against it kind of on instinct, on principle, on probably not necessarily by Sugar Mama, because she was clearly fine with it, but how he was raised, not necessarily by family, but by his surrounding circumstances. And he, even by the end, genuinely understood he was wrong. I mean, yeah, at first he was lured in by the scent of gumbo and whatnot, and he eventually, in the end, realized that there's nothing wrong with it at all. And that was the symbolism of, his broken eyes, which was a weird symbolic idea. For me, I don't know, that is a little weird. But it was symbolic of his eyes fixing to his mind fixing in a way. To him realizing he was wrong. And even had a good moment with Penny in the end, where he acknowledges that it's a good thing she listened to him and Trudy in certain regards. To treat people the way you would want to be treated. Which, yeah, obviously very good. Ideal. So, unfortunately, this is a very positive outlook on things. A lot of these stories don't end this way in real life. A lot of these stories don't end with the bullies at school, the homophobic bullies at school turning around, just this other kids around you turning around on things, or parents and other adults. A lot of times it doesn't happen that way. And definitely not this quickly. Like, it did not happen this quickly for me to become a better person in that regard. It took a lot of work, a lot of listening to people, a lot of doing my own research into things even. And I'm glad I did do all of that. I'm glad I put forth the effort into changing myself. And it helped me understand myself a lot better. But yeah, it's like, in real life, it's not as easy as this. And I know, it's a cartoon and everything. So they're allowed to rush things a little bit. But that is something that I feel like viewers need to understand. That in real life, there will still be a lot of bigotry that remains. A lot of these homophobic bigots will continue to be a problem. And they won't just turn over a new leaf because they see how good the couple is, or because of gumbo, or even because of what their family says to them. That's just not realistic, unfortunately. Even having family themselves who happen to be queer won't change them a lot of times. So it's horrible that that's the case. I wish it weren't. I wish things were as easy as they were in this. But they're not. And that needs to be addressed. Speaking on Barry and Randall's characters, though, like, just moving away from the social commentary aspect, let's actually talk about the episode itself and just the actual content. We have met Barry before, briefly. Randall, I think this is our first time meeting, though. I like both of them. I really like both of them. I think they're really wonderful characters. They seem really sweet and cute. And yeah, they seem extremely nice. Like, these are the kind of neighbors you would want, and honestly, just the kind of people you want to be around. The kind of parents you would want, for sure. They seem like great fathers to both Mai and KG. And I really like that. I really like how they're just good, respectable people. I'm a little conflicted, to say the least, on one of them being a cop, considering, how cops have treated queer people and people of color, and are known for doing so. Luckily, it's very obvious Barry would never do that, but still, it's a conflicting feeling for sure. And it's also, like, unsure of how all of that stands within the context of this world. It's not like Arcane, where, yeah, the police force in that being excessively corrupt is legitimately part of the story. As well as, being an actual massive antagonistic force within the world. This series tends to be very based in reality. So I'm kind of wondering if that is ever going to be brought up. And we can't just, like, say, like, it's all good just because he's married to Randall and Randall's a person of color. We can't, like, just say that as an excuse either. I do kind of hope it touches on that at some point, because it's a legitimate issue that just can't be ignored. It really is. Again, Barry seems like a great guy. I'm just saying. It's just an issue that, because of real life and how absolutely just fucked up, at least here in America, cops are, it's it's a thing that I can't get over. I've talked about this before in other things, but usually if it's like a fantasy world or something like that, or something that is like clearly not indicative of reality, I can usually handle it. But it's like there's some situations where it does bother me. In this, I'm kind of on the fence. Because I like how he's portrayed, but there's implications there with how this series tends to commentate on real life situations and all. But I still like his character. He's a nice guy. He's really he's really nice and everything. Like, we see the scene where he like offers to help La Cienega and her friends get into the concert and everything. Which, does he have the ability to do that? Like, he's working security for the concert. It's like, can he just get them in? Can he do that? I don't, maybe, but I don't know. And then there's Randall, who is a bank employee. I don't know his exact position. I'm not super well versed on all of that, but yeah, he seems very smart, very witty. He has a good sense of humor, but also is clearly upset by Oscar's reactions towards him. That is made very clear. And I like that. I like that he's not just oblivious to that. And speaking of reactions towards them, there's one other that I haven't mentioned yet, and that's Felix. Felix was very much against Barry at first because of Sunset and Barry doing this undercover work together and her hanging out more with him and everything. But when he found out that Barry is gay, he was instantly okay with him. Just instantly like, let's be friends. I love you. You're awesome. And it's like, there's some problematic ideas in there. There really is. I don't think Felix, like Oscar or anything, was supposed to be seen as homophobic there, but it's definitely a questionable decision to have him do that. To just have that little tiny subplot in there in the first place. Just admittedly. But yeah, the episode was enjoyable overall, and it did give some good commentary, some good ideas to it. Overall, yeah, pretty interesting, pretty fun. Had a lot to say on real life social commentary, but not everything worked. There were a couple things that were just a little for me, just personally. Definitely the part that got me the angriest, though, was still Zoe. Just her reasoning. But again, the message was good, and it was a good episode still. But like I said in the pre-thoughts, next week's episode will be our last for the time being. We are going to take a break after episode 5, and we'll come back to the second half after that break. Just so we don't get burnt out, because like I said, this show does tackle, well, as clearly with this episode, it does tackle some very notably heavy real subject matter. And with this episode, it was at least personally connected with me. But because of that, it's like I feel like I could get burnt out on the series a little easier, so I just want to be safe and take a little break. We'll get to something else in the meantime, and then we'll come right back to it. Basically, just like what we did with Adventure Time and OKKO, we just kind of switched between them, taking a break on one and getting back to it after we watched through the other. We're going to do basically the same thing here. I'm going to announce next week what is going to replace it, though. I will wait until then to announce what will take its place for the time being. And like I said, we will come right back to it, because I still very much enjoy this series. I still think it's very good. overall. And I'm definitely interested to see more. So, like I said, next week we will get to episode 5, and hopefully it leaves us off on a good note for the first half of this season. So, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode of The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, and thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.